Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and today I'm reviewing Zombicide Undead or Alive from CMON Games. Zombicide Undead or Alive is the newest iteration of the Zombicide franchise, although that depends on how you count Marvel, zombies and Marvel Zombies Heroes Resistance, so they're, I guess, no longer the newest version of, well, Zombicide. But Zombicide Undead or Alive is the Wild West themed version of Zombicide from CMON Games. This review is going to almost inherently touch upon the other Zombicide, so I'll go into a general how-to of how the game plays, the general overview of what's going on here, and then I'll go into my general opinion of the Zombicide series, as well as the ways that Undead or Alive branches out or diverges from the series, and what I like, don't like, and all of that, and then as well, of course, my final thoughts and recommendations. Timestamps to any particular section down below, just because of how large Zombicide is as a franchise, it's going to be a little different from my usual review format. But with that said, let's go ahead and dive into this. What is Zombicide? What's going on in this game? Zombicide is a 1 to 6 player game. Although I do not recommend playing it as 6 players, I recommend taking these 6 characters that you play, and then playing it either as a 1, 2, or 3 player game, dividing up those 6 characters amongst the players at the table. In the game, you're trying to accomplish a variety of objectives depending on the scenario you're playing. So the game's going to give you specific scenarios. What you see set up on the board over here is completely fictional. I made this up for the purpose of this review, but you'll have a scenario, which there's going to be a bunch in the core game, in the core rulebook, as well as the fact that generally, CMON puts out additional scenarios, as well as fans put out scenarios in case you want more scenario content. Each scenario will have a map layout using the tiles from the game, from the expansions. They're going to give you all that. Then it's going to give you specific objectives, which usually involve getting objectives, possibly getting objectives in orders, accomplishing certain things, destroying certain spawn points, some degree of cleverness as far as, what you're trying to do in the game. And from there, you're going to go into this cooperative experience in which all of the survivors, your characters over here, these little guys over here, are going to take 3 actions each round, followed by, all of them will take 3 actions, so all 6 of them will take 3 actions each, followed by the zombies activating, and then the zombies spawning. Rinse and repeat until either you are overwhelmed by the horde of plastic taking you down, or alternatively until you accomplish your objectives. To that end, the actions you can take, and I'm not going to go into every little detail, I'm going to go into the high level of what a turn generally looks like. The primary actions you can take are either attacking, moving, searching, completing an objective. Those are going to be the 4 main things you're doing in this game. There are no opening doors here. That's going to be one of the differences between Undead or Alive and prior Zombicide series. But again, attacking, moving, searching, and completing objectives will be the most common things. You also have the opportunity to trade with other players, so there are other things you can do. Certain cars will require actions. When you move around the board, you're going to take your person, you're going to move them 1 zone. That could be from a zone to another zone in an outside area. It could be into a zone with other zombies. Never would I entirely recommend, especially when there's 2 fatties over here, especially if you do not have the weapons necessary to take them out. But that's a move. You move from one spot to another. If you're playing with the Undead, the Running Wild expansion over here, where you have horses, a movement with the horses will allow you to move 2 zones, but horses can only be used in outside zones. Past that, the attack action involves you taking one of your equipment cards. Let's grab an old little weapon over here. You're going to take one of your equipment cards, and you're going to roll the specific number of dice shown at the range shown. So this is a 0 to 1 weapon, which means it could be used in your zone and at range 1. You're going to roll 1 die on a 5+, and it's a level 1 weapon, which means that it can only take down level 1 zombies. You'll have level 1, level 2, and possibly level 3 weapons, although it's really primarily level 1, level 2 weapons, with things that can modify your strength to be level 3 as well. That's important because the only way you can take down an abomination in this game is through a level 3, a strength 3 weapon, and so you need those at some point in some way to take things down. So again, that's moving and attacking. When you attack, you go ahead, again, you pick the range, you pick the weapon, and you go ahead and roll the dice to hopefully take down as many zombies as possible, and then at which point you'll be moving up your experience tracker on your board, which will eventually get you to a point where you'll be unlocking. Let's go ahead and show you one of these. You're going to be advancing your experience tracker on the board, which will eventually move you to yellow, then to orange, and then to red, where you will unlock additional skills for your character on that board. That's going to be the moving and attacking action. Searching can only be done on indoor zones, and when you do a search, you're going to search indoors over here, and you're going to go into a zone with no zombies. You're going to search, and you're going to draw something from this deck over here, which generally gives you better equipment and or augmented gear that will help you in some way. Let you re-roll certain results, give you, water that you can discard for experience, or water that you can pass to one of the players, turn into holy water, and get rid of a spawn point. More on that later. The last action I mentioned is completing an objective, and again, more actions you can do. You can trade your gear with other characters. When you complete an objective, you're going to gather one of these, and generally most missions will give you 5 experience points for them. Sometimes there'll be specific hidden ones with different colors in the back that you're trying to find amongst all the objective crates, and that is basically what's happening there. Additionally, when you move in the game, whenever you move into a new area, if that area has a corpse pile, so for example over here, when you move into this zone over here, you're going to see this corpse piles that will generate because you've moved into an area, you're going to put new spawn points onto the board. This is one of the differences between this and some other Zombicides. Again, we'll cover differences later. But when you move into an area, you'll create more spawn points, which those spawn points, in addition to the spawn points that you have from the beginning of the game, the first and the other spawn points you have, will give you the various spawn points you need to have all the zombies spawning and attacking you, trying to stop you completing your objectives. You see, when you're done with those actions, when all the characters have taken those actions, moving, attacking, accomplishing objectives, trying to be mindful of the zombies in their zone, zombies will slow you down. If you have zombies in your zone, it takes extra actions to move out unless you have the right skills to avoid that. When you're done with all of that, all the zombies activate, generally trying to head towards the most visible source of noise on the board. Whenever you take an action that involves noise, which is generally going to be weapon actions, shooting, things like that, you're going to have a noise token which has a bang and a boom side. Bang is going to be just for the most recent source of noise, and boom is for explosions. In general, the idea being, if you have an explosion somewhere, it doesn't matter that you're shooting your gun over here, an explosion happened over there, it is the largest source of noise. The only thing that can move a boom is a new larger source of noise, a new explosion. Zombies are going to try to head towards things in line of sight with the most noise. If they can't see, if the most noise is not in line of sight, they prioritize line of sight, and they're going to start moving down these lanes, trying to find the various heroes, the survivors, that they can try to take out. You're going to have runners who get 2 activations each round, which means they can go ahead and go 1 and attack in the same round, which is a great way to die very quickly in this game. Don't worry, there's lots of great ways to die very quickly in this game. But the various zombie types, the core game is going to have walkers, runners, and I believe they're called brutes now. They used to be called fatties. And you're going to have those three walker types. Walkers being the basic one hit to kill, plain simple, 1 strength, 1 action. Brutes being stronger, they require 2 strength weapons, still only 1 action. They also protect the other zombies in the zone. And then you'll also have the runners who have 1 hit to kill, but they 1 strength to kill, but 2 actions, which makes them a dangerous threat. And then depending on what expansions you have, you might have additional zombie types. For example, over here, I have the long dead walkers, which cannot be killed with ranged weapons, so you have to get all up close and personal, which is also otherwise known as up close and dangerous. Then lastly, you'll have these abominations over here. These abominations, there's going to be a whole stack of them. Whenever you draw an abomination, you'll choose one from the abomination deck to spawn, and those abominations will have a variety of abilities as how they interact, but more importantly, they are a strength 3 character and take a lot to kill. When all the abominations are done activating, all the zombies are done activating, you're going to have zombies spawn, and that repeats the cycle. You're going to draw spawn cards from this deck over here, and these spawn cards, that's going to be, what did I draw? I drew the wrong card over there. You're going to draw spawn cards from this deck over here, which will show you a variable number of, they'll show you the type, in this case walkers, and a variable number depending on the strength level of your characters, how much you leveled up. We have walkers, we have runners, we have extra activations, we have brutes over here. All of those, that means that as you level up in the game, yes, you get more stuff, you get more powerful, and you can't avoid it, by the way. You have to take experience when you're supposed to, but also the game is getting more brutally challenging as you go. Where you once you were spawning 4 brutes, you're now spawning 8 because you decided to level up, and so you want to try to level up everyone in unison in this game. That is generally the game of Zombicide. That's generally how you play the game. You're taking your survivors, you're taking 3 actions per turn. When all of them are done activating, shooting, moving, doing what they need to do to reposition and get their accomplishments done, to get their objectives done, you will have the zombies activate, then the zombies spawn, rinse and repeat the cycle until either everyone's dead, well, everyone's dead, you're dead, or alternatively you accomplish your objectives. Which brings us to my general opinion on Zombicide as a series. Let's start with that over here, and this opinion is to this general Zombicide universe, not specific to Undead or Alive. We'll cover the Undead or Alive aspects or changes shortly. As a starting baseline, I like the Zombicide system, for the most part. I say for the most part because I have loved some Zombicides, and then gotten rid of others to varying degrees. I have always been charmed by what they offer, but in some cases it works for me, in some cases it doesn't work for me. Zombicide to me is a beer and pretzels game. That's the genre of just being fun and exciting and interesting, a little bit potentially a little less strategic, and a lot more rolling dice and just activating things. You're going to be rolling a handful of dice as you try to roll your weapons, try to take down the zombies. You're going to be leveling up, gathering your abilities, so it has that RPG element. It has great miniature presence and table presence on the board, and has a very well play because of the missions, the encounters, the variety of heroes you're going to be using, the abominations you'll be facing off against, the weapon and gear you're getting. There's a lot of variety to the experience. It's a lot of fun. It has great table presence. It has that RPG elements of leveling up and improving. It has strategic play as you work together with other players to decide when to split up, when to stay together, when to push a little further to get that one objective, when you're going to end up dying on your own because you did. It has all these elements in the game that make it interesting and fun and rewarding. For me, one of the struggles has always been about challenging. I've always been intrigued by every Zombicide game I've played. Some have worked for me better than others because of the difficulty aspect. I have found some to be way too easy, specifically 2nd Edition and Invader. I have never lost a game in either of those, despite trying to house rule and modify the game to be more difficult. I just haven't found them to ever provide a challenge. Black Plague, which was my entry into the Zombicide franchise, is one that I've thoroughly enjoyed, and I find that it's 50-50 as to whether I win or lose. I walk into every game not really knowing exactly how the cards will play out every single game. Marvel Zombies, which isn't fully out yet, but we have Heroes Resistance out, and they had the Kickstarter. That was suitably challenging, and combined with the Marvel IP was a solid win, which brings us to Undead or Alive. Again, I like the Zombicide universe. Ultimately, it's a question of which one does and doesn't work for me, and so I'll start off with that first point. When I talk about Undead or Alive, how it's different from the various Zombicide games, I'll start with that first point, which is the difficulty. I love the difficulty of Undead or Alive. I love it. It is incredibly challenging. It is the most difficult Zombicide I've played yet, arguably more so than Marvel Zombies. I say that only because I've played Undead or Alive more than Marvel Zombies, and my win rate is so far worse, but I do need more time with Marvel Zombies to really know that for sure. But I will say Undead or Alive is brutal. It is difficult. This is not a game where you can pick 6 survivors and walk in and just, play well and do well. This is a game where every single mission is challenging. Most missions will require 2 plays to be able to get, at least that second play, to kind of get that first play under your belt, figure out what you did wrong and where your weak points are, and then regroup with the right survivors and jump back in to try to take things down. This still has the beer and pretzels feel to it, but the difficulty is there. That aspect that I personally have always craved from the Zombicide genre is very present in Undead or Alive. It is brutally difficult. Now you should very strongly note here, this does mean that this may be a great Zombicide for you if you like that, if you want that, and if that sounds like a good thing for you. If this is your first entry point into the Zombicide universe, you have to take into account, does that mean this does work for you or not? If this is your first time diving to Zombicide, you will likely lose and lose a lot until you get a feel for how to improve the game, or possibly how to house rule it for you, but you should know that if you are walking into the Zombicide universe for the first time, I would caution that I am slightly concerned as to whether it will or won't work for you in that sense, I guess is where I'm at with that. As far as other differences, one of the first things we're going to have is this train tile over here. The train's going to be this little mechanic where you can have the train that might be a scenario-specific aspect to it, that depending on the scenario you're playing will have different rules, what's happening, but the train will move into station, which gives you different rules, and it gives you a bit of a changing map as you slowly, across a variety of turns, move the train into play, and then swap it out with the train tracks with the train cars. This will have, first of all, a nice visual presence on the board, but additionally is going to give you this aspect of just destroying everything there, so it's both tactically and visually pleasing. I like the train. It's not a game-breaking thing, but I do enjoy it. You're also going to see the singular source of noise. We're going to have these little source that bang, there's a boom token. That, like I said already, is going to be a difference over there. I like the streamlining of it. I don't know if it's absolutely essential to me. It's nice to have that extra little difference to it, but again, it's not a make or break. I'm fine with the change to it. The difficulty I mentioned already, we have the abomination activations. These abominations in general are going to be activating far more frequently. More things trigger abominations to activate on a regular basis. These things are going to be stampeding around the board. You have to take them very seriously. That goes into the difficulty aspect. Managing your abominations, knowing where you have room for that threat versus where you don't, is a big part of the game, because before you know it, you can find yourself just completely overwhelmed by an abomination just stomping down on your crowd of survivors. That's a big deal. They're going to be activating more often. The spawn point system. First of all, when you walk into a room now, compared to previous Zombicide iterations, depending which one you're comparing it to, you will not be spawning zombies in the various rooms as you open doors. There are no doors to open. Rather, when you enter a room, you will spawn that corpse pile, and that corpse pile introduces a new spawn point, although it does give you a way to get rid of it with holy water, so you do need to factor in when is the right time to walk into a room. When do you think you're prepared for the extra zombies that are going to be spawning every single round? I like that system overall. I really like I like the system in Black Plague where you open a door and tons of zombies were there, but I also like the threat system over here. Walking into multiple buildings all at once very quickly, you will die. You will be overwhelmed with zombies before you're ready for them. You do need to be mindful of when you're prepared to walk into a new building and activate that corpse pile. Additionally, we have riders. That's going to be one of the things with the Running Wild expansion. They give you a bunch of survivors where they have their own mounts and you can wander around the board in different ways. I really like them. I really like them overall. They're not game breaking. They're nice to have. It gives you a new way to interact with the riders you'll have for the various survivors in the game. They have some rules around them. Whether they have slippery when they're charging through a crowd of zombies. They give you plus rolls to melee. They can't go into buildings. You need to manage them. And if your horse ever dies, you lose the game. So you need to be mindful of that as well. There's going to be changes to the way you have vault weapons, or in this case you have bounty weapons that very often they can be found in certain situations, but they can also be earned by accomplishing certain feats. I like that system, although I do wish I had more bounty weapons as opposed to the small handful that actually are in the game. And then there's going to be class roles. One of the things they have in Zombicide Undead or Alive are the class roles, where every survivor also has their own class type of what they also add to the game, inherent skills that they have, including, you know, that holy water aspect. You have these characters that can have, you know, throwing these tokens down the board that prevent activations, which seems overpowered at first until you realize you're dying too much in this game and you need that Vade Retro token over there. And so every survivor comes into play with their own unique class role. Not unique, there's 4 different classes, and then the riders kind of count as an augment class as well. And so those are a nice additional aspect to have something extra in the game as you're building out your team and their unique specialties in the game. And so those are primarily the core differences going on between Zombicide Undead or Alive and prior Zombicides. The main one is going to be the difficulty, and all those other factors kind of contribute to other things, other reasons to get the game, and of course the theme. If you want the theme, this does very much have a solid Wild West theme that is very enjoyable, which brings us to my final thoughts, my rating of Zombicide Undead or Alive. I thought I was going to get rid of this game. If you watch my unboxing, I unboxed this, I don't know, 2 months ago, whenever it was. You can check that out. If you watch my unboxing of this game, I talk about the fact that, yes, I enjoyed playing Undead or Alive the one time I did at the time, but I didn't think that I needed space in my collection for Black Plague and Marvel Zombies, both of which I'm going to own. Well, I own Black Plague and Marvel Zombies is coming, and I don't think I need or have room for a third Zombicide in my collection, and yet right now this is sticking around. I don't know what's going to happen over time. I can't speak for that, but I can say that Undead or Alive is brutally punishing and difficult, but in a way that's not too much. Rather, it's just enough that I feel I can do it, and I feel I need to try harder, and I feel I need to dive into that next scenario, trying to get the job done. I have gone into scenarios, lost them, and replayed them and won, and it is satisfying to do so. The game is challenging, but the game is also very rewarding. I am thoroughly enjoying what this Zombicide game is bringing to the table as far as the difficulty and changes to the core Zombicide structure. There's not a lot of changes, and I will say, one thing I didn't mention as far as a difference is there's still a lack of zombie variety compared to something like Black Plague. Black Plague, to me, has the biggest degree of zombie variety in the genre, in the Zombicide genre, and I love that. I love having different types of Zombicides on the board. To me, those Deadeye Walkers and Wolves make the game for me. Over here, we have the Long Dead Walkers, and that's pretty much it. We don't have as much variety in the system, and that is still the main thing that's holding this back for me as far as being uncertain where this lies compared to Black Plague. If this had that variety, this would easily be better than Black Plague to me because the other elements are so well done. This feels like a good degree of fine-tuning of the Zombicide system in a way that very much caters towards hardcore Zombicide players. That's the thing you want to be mindful of when you're picking up this game. I think it works excellently for hardcore Zombicide players. I'm not confident if this is a good entry point to the genre. Overall, I'm loving Undead or Alive. This, to me, is a 5 out of 5. I thoroughly enjoy it. To me, that 5 out of 5 has been earned by Black Plague. It's been earned by Marvel Zombies. Second Edition and Invader did not get that for me. They were good implementations, but they fell short. Still enjoyable, but fell short compared to other Zombicides. But Undead or Alive, thoroughly enjoyable. Really, really recommend this one, especially if the key thing you're looking for is that difficulty. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, Marvel Zombies, Black Plague, those are both obviously more Zombicide, but if you're looking for things to branch out of Zombicide, first of all, within the Command universe, there's Massive Darkness, you can check that out for more strategic, very different kind of dungeon crawling system, but then also there's Machina Arcana. If you're looking for a totally different beast of a game that's also very hard, very challenging, and requires a lot of planning and thought, Machina Arcana from Adriama Games is one that I can highly recommend. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this video helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.